I'll never, like, I might never get a role like this in my entire life. Like, you could wait your whole career to have a role that good. So I was just like, I really want to do a good job.
Andy, did you have, what an astonishing job, first of all, casting this show. Every single character, from the lead, every single character seems perfect. And you can't imagine anyone else doing those roles. Did you have a strategy? What was your strategy for casting the show?
I'd like to think that there was a straight answer to that, but there isn't one really. I think you're always completely led by the writing, and what Russell does so brilliantly is, of course, there are all of these fantastic big leading roles, but he makes each and every tiny role believable and gives the actor something to do with it, rather than coming on, giving a bit of information and disappearing again.
And talk about, in terms of casting Ollie, did you cast Ollie first? Was that key to getting that role, and then everything else kind of fell into place afterwards?
Yeah, we met really early on, didn't we? We did, yeah. The thing is, Ollie did do a fair bit of acting, didn't you, before the music started?
I think we've met before.
Yeah, we had met. Yeah.
Oh, you're getting a new mic, Ollie. There you go.
Oh.
Yeah, you were probably only about 17 or 18.
When we met before, yeah.
I was about 21. Something like that. And,
never forgot me, Andy. Thank you.
And so, I remembered Ollie's work from stuff he'd done before, and just, thought of him as an idea, but thought, well, no way, because he's off being a pop star. But I called Ollie's agent, and she said, well, funnily enough, we've just been chatting, and Ollie said he might do a bit of acting if the right thing came up. So it was timing, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As soon as I heard that Russell was making this TV show, I just couldn't. I just watched, and I'd also just watched Years and Years, his TV show, and I loved it, and I've always loved Russell's stuff. So I got sent this email. Russell's making this new TV show. It's called it was called Boys at the time, but this is what it's about. And I just couldn't, I couldn't believe how it was like. I couldn't imagine a more perfect project to be involved with. So I was like, of course, I'll meet Russell, and it all just kind of went from there. But I definitely was quite scared because it was I felt like at times Russell was sort of like, I was like, how do you expect me to do this, Russell? It's like, another speech, okay, cool. But it was so amazing to feel like Russell, because I met Russell sort of before he'd finished writing the whole thing, so he had me in mind in those final episodes, and I was just like, wow, I might never get a role like this in my entire life. Like, you could wait your whole career to have a role that good. So I was just like, I really want to do a good job. And
Lydia, I was lucky enough to visit the set, and it was clear to me, like, I think you'd been working on it for a few weeks, that you'd formed a bond. There seemed to be a bond between all of you. Like, you were making jokes about each other, you were having a laugh. Did that happen immediately, or did you all kind of work at that?
Yeah, no, I think it was almost immediately. I met Ollie first in a music room, and we instantly bonded because we had to sing together. And that was the day before the read-through, and then we were all kind of at the read-through, and we were all just kind of as scared as each other, and we just instantly bonded over it. And then we read the 5 episodes, and after that it was like as if I knew you guys already.
Callum, congratulations on your scene is the Virgin Media Must See Moment nomination.
and he's already got a BAFTA.
And he's a winner already. But those scenes, those are unbelievably powerful scenes. How did you go about approaching a scene like that when you were about to do it?
I think I remember quite vividly having a conversation with Russell, because Russell used to come to set, and because he was always there, his presence, whether it was over the phone or whether he would come to set, it was always felt massively. And I remember one day he came to set, and I wasn't filming, but these guys were, and like I'm such like, I was like, Russell, how are you doing? Like, and he was quite busy. He was watching these guys act, but I was like, we're filming that scene next week, and it was the scene that where Colin it's the AIDS diagnosis scene, and I was like what do you think? Because it's been playing on my mind a lot, and Russell was like, just go for it, and in a way that says so much about what he's like and how generous he is. I was a first time actor. I had sort of everything to prove, and he was just like, go for it. And there was no there was no note he gave that was sort of directly like profound, but it was so profound, and he was so brilliant at supporting us. I think all of us, right? Like he just knew what to say, when to say it, and as a working with someone for the first time, someone like Russell, who is obviously a bloody genius. It was so amazing, and yeah, it was very supportive. Just a lot of support. I think that's what led to it. I was shit scared of it, to be honest. That's my honest. I was so scared of the scene because there's things you read, and I first read it when I was at drama school, because that's when I auditioned, and I think I was so scared of that scene, but I think Peter was so great at just like breaking things down with me, and just like, it's worth saying that like the dementia scenes, Peter would always give a note, just like play it like he's the football shirt he's seeing here, and it's really just breaking it down and breaking Russell's lines down really as one by one. And I think Peter is an amazing director, and he won a BAFTA yesterday, which is so amazing, and he deserves it because he was so brilliant at that stuff. And also Lydia was a great scene partner. She'd make me laugh too many times. Times where she shouldn't have. But yeah.
When it is that heavy, do you when the scene cuts and do you have to kind of chill out and relax and have fun in a way to relieve the tension of the?
Well, yeah, I mean, there were some scenes, I'm telling you now, Boyd, where we should not have been laughing. Like, all I'll say is the wanking scene in the hospital. We couldn't get through it.
Wow.
But, yeah.
If we've learnt one valuable thing today, it's that the wanking scene was hard to get through.
It was hard to get through.
Yeah, brilliant.
There was a thing that back in rehearsals, the 1 week that we did right at the top, I think I was quite nervous, so I just sort of sat quietly, felt like for a bit, and then I was doing I think it was that scene in the Pink Palace, and Russell was sitting next to me and just leant over and said, "He's really fun." And I went, "Okay, got it." Right. So then I went, "Okay, I'm just going to have fun with this. Like, I've been given the green light by the boss." So I just threw myself then into I think I used the words absurdly confident, I think is what I said to Peter, and then he went, "Okay, cool," and then we went with that, and it seemed to come through, which was good. It was that's my first kind of biggest job on telly as well, so I had no real idea of, if I do this, is that going to read? So I just hoped for the best.
Amari, did you? This was your first big TV job, right?
Yeah, it was my first telly. Yeah.
Right. Were you nervous about that at all? Especially, you're acting with these guys, but also with some legends as well. How did you approach the whole thing?
I was really nervous. When Lydia was speaking about the read-through then, I have a vivid memory of getting on the train from Wolverhampton that day and getting into that office and just feeling so overwhelmed by just the magnitude of the situation. And I had, I was always aware of Russell's work, and it was just, it was so bizarre to me that we were all in the room together and reading. And I remember I was so nervous. I had to sit on my hands. My hands were shaking before we started that read through. But I think the thing that was so nervous but also thrilling for me was that, reading that character, reading Roscoe, and sort of there is such an inherent kind of rebellion and sort of audaciousness in him. I was nervous to lean into that, but sort of I think in those moments you can only really rely on your instincts. And of course, when you're doing something for the first time, it's really, really easy to kind of overthink things. But I feel like that because we had everyone else around us, it just felt really supportive. And so, you just have to lean into instincts. And I had so much fun. What Andy was saying about people wanting to come in and step in, and even though the roles were smaller, Stephen was so open about the fact that he wanted to come and do the show because he felt like that the story that we were telling was so important. And he was just so wonderful and generous. And
that scene right at the end in Ep 5, right at the end of the show, where Jill goes into the Lonely Joe, and she sits by his bed, and he doesn't, I don't know you, and he said, that doesn't matter, I'm just gonna sit here if that's okay. I think that scene needs to be etched in some sort of it's just, for me, that's what I take from the show. When I think back about it to Sin, I see that scene, and that for me was the nail in the coffin. I was under my sheet for hours just sobbing, because that's what it's all about. That man who had no one but a woman who had never met him before, coming in to sit with him for however long. I think there's brutality and beauty in Russell's writing, and that scene for me like epitomises it.
My name's Richard. I work for the Terence Higgins Trust, and I just want to say thank you for all that you've done for not only in the show but outside the show for HIV education and raising so much money for people living with HIV today, and to continue that work. Not only have you raised all that money, we wouldn't have got 20 million for HIV testing across most of our hospitals, and the change to and ending the ban on people living with HIV joining the military without this show. It just put HIV on the map to decision makers in a way that nothing else has done. So thank you for that.
We've just heard about the impact this show has had and continues to have. What does it feel like to have been a part of that? And have there been any messages from viewers that have gone in touch with you about how much the show has meant to them that have really stuck with you?
I had one, because I never get. That's another thing I've always wanted to mention to someone. There was a guy who messaged me on Twitter, who is a healthcare worker. Didn't specify what kind of healthcare, but healthcare worker, and had got off a night shift, and he was Scottish, Glaswegian, and couldn't sleep after his night shift. I think he had a particularly rough one, so decided to watch the second episode of SSN, and then heard our conversation, Chloe and Jill's conversation in the flat, and he said to me that it was almost word for word, he felt anyway, that it was word for word what he said to his best friend when he came out of having HIV, and he was so scared of never being able to keep it, or not being able to keep his job, and being able to witness that for him just felt enlightening. Which that was like, I don't think you get any better than that. Like, it's if you're going to act, and like that's the sort of thing you want to have. So yeah, when he messaged that, I don't know if ever he watches this, I'd just love to see it. Like, it sits with me every day, really, that he said that. That was brilliant.
Lots of people would say to me, or they would say, I'm so sorry, like I didn't know that was happening. I didn't know at the time. You know, people that had lived through the time and maybe felt like guilty that they hadn't done more. And there was such a breadth of reactions from people who were teenagers who had no idea that this had happened in the past, and they're seeing as a world they recognise on screen. It's not that long ago, and they're going, wait, did this really happen? Like, people really treat queer people like this? And you know, for people saying to me, and the thing about the testing, like, just how many people went and got a test was just so amazing. And like, people that were testing for the first time, and you know, and making that choice to look after their health, and there's just so many, just blown away constantly by how the show is kind of just opened up those things for some people. You know, it's really mind blowing.
It's not often as an actor that you're part of something that it's so educational, and you almost become a spokesperson for that thing, and it's such a privilege. And it's shoes that I didn't really know how to fill, and to fill before it came out, and then it came out, and suddenly we were all spokespeople, and that kind of, it's such an honor, and it's so amazing to bring that and have that side of you that you don't really know, like, really exists. So it helped me find my voice, and I think it's just amazing that BAFTA have recognised this project, and we have 12 nominations, and it's still being spoken about 2 years later from making it, and I hope it continues to be spoken about for 20 years or 50 years, and for our lifetime. And yeah, it just feels it's overwhelming, but in the best possible way, because it's just it needed to happen. These conversations needed to happen, and I get lots of messages. And a message that stood out for me at the start was someone going home and telling their family about their positive status, but based on seeing a show, being able to then go home and feel that courage to do that, it's just so special. And it's just those, if you can affect one person's life through your work, it's just bloody amazing. So amazing.
They say we got it from the jungle. They say it's caused by friction. They say it's in the sponge. They say Freddie Laker spread it when he introduced cheap flights. They say there's one patient zero spreading it wherever he goes. They say it affects homosexuals, patients, and haemophiliacs. Like, there's a disease which has targeted the letter H. Who's it going to get next? People from Hartlepool and Hampshire and Hull. Don't you see what all of these things have got in common?
Nicola, let me start with you. I remember interviewing Russell before the show was going out, I think it was going out in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and he was kind of terrified about how the reception it would get, whether anyone would watch it, whether it would be a bit too dark. Did you have any of those qualms? Did you have the same kind of feeling, or were you pretty sure that it would be a success?
Oh no, you're never sure that anything will be a success, and you worry about everything going out. And it does tackle difficult issues, and it was set in an era that people didn't know a lot about. So we had a lot of who would the audience be? But I think because of the way Russell had approached it, and because I knew who was in it and I knew how he'd made it, I was confident that it was very good. But it's whether people come to it or not, you just don't know at all.
And I remember also that Russell said that originally he wanted it to be like 8 parts, for example, and Channel 4 were like, no, how about 4? And you kind of end up with 5. Did that mean that the process, that the storytelling changed a lot and the pace of the show changed a lot in that development process?
We missed out elements of their lives in the 80s. So it was both a combination of losing material from the 80s, and also he had an idea that he was going to bring it up to the present day. So you're going to cut, so the final episode was going to be Jill and Roscoe in the present day, and they were campaigning and they were doing some brilliant things, and one day hopefully that'll be made. You never know. But
Please, yes.
Available. So it was an idea that it was a much bigger show than it was. But actually, as ever, when these things happen, I think making it so intimate and making it smaller and making it very, very focused on the specific story beats that it ended up being focused on probably were to the advantage in the end.
It was one of the most difficult things I've ever produced. It was very difficult. I mean, you just look at that sequence and the number of different locations you're cutting between, filmed across many, many, many different days. A nightmare for you guys to and I mean, he is a really difficult writer to produce because he writes.
Not because of him.
Oh no! Sorry, God, I love him. I love him with all my heart. No, I just mean that physically realizing the scripts that he writes is really difficult. But this was a labour of love for all of us, and such a work of beauty that we all just dived in.
Laura and Lynn, for you, the challenge of just loads and loads of looks from this period, how did you go about? Did you research it? Did you have freedom that you wouldn't necessarily stick to the absolute letter of exactly what people were wearing back then? How did you go about it and how they looked with their hair and makeup?
So we did stick to the letter of how it looked in the 80s because I was in my 20s in the 80s, so I remember it really vividly. And I was quite keen to use the same techniques on the hairstyling. So we would use the old styling ones that we used to use and not the modern ones.
We went across 10 years, so that was quite and the 10 years changed quite dramatically for us, so it was about telling the story from, so I looked after Ollie, so it was Richie's story from being on the Isle of Wight, then moving to London, lived this free, loose lifestyle, so then his hair, it was like trying to reflect it in little ways, so it was like we then, added wefts to his hair to make the big more curly and free and loose for all the dance scenes. It was like the Isle of Wight was like a blow dried, like his mum, the classic frizzy 80s.
Yeah.
So it was like we made a journey then. So then we knew how to make him, because we obviously knew the end result, we really bigged it up at the beginning, and then by the time we got to the end, we literally broke him down to the point of his sickness then.
Sarah, congratulations on your BAFTA, first of all. When you read Russell's script, and it feels the whole show felt incredibly. All his shows feel pacey and fast moving, but this one perhaps more than ever. I mean, it's just. I watched the first episode again the other day, and it's just helter skelter. For you as the editor, is it crucial your role in that? And are you thinking as soon as you're reading the script, how do I keep this pace going? How do I keep it kind of going at that full pelt?
I sensed it when reading it, but it really hit home when we had the read-through in Manchester, and Russell raced through it, and I felt, right.
Russell reads the stage directions and the read-through, and he sets the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew it was brilliant to be witness to that. The sequence in Ep 1, the sex montage, that was about 6 minutes long in my first assembly, because the track is that long.
That's the Hooked on Classics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you cut it down from 6 minutes to the? How long was it in the end? Just like a
the music
Right.
for each kind of transition and each change in the music, and just made it tighter and tighter and tighter, sort of half each time till it felt right.
Right. So you had Ollie 6 minutes of Ollie having sex, basically.
Pretty
in
much.
The original. Where's the edit? We'll find out.
The track's really long.
And do you have discussions with Peter, the director, and Russell? You're constantly discussing how you're tightening it up and how you're keeping it.
Yeah, well, I had a long assembly period, and people were watching assemblies as we went, but it's not until the fine cut that you really kind of hone down a lot of what you've done.
Yeah, you mentioned about a potential sequel. I just want to know if you could elaborate a bit more on how that would work.
I don't think it will be a sequel, sorry, but
Well, that's what you said.
It was an idea. There was a time when there was a lot of stories in the press about young boys being manipulated online to masturbate, basically, and they were being filmed, and then they were being blackmailed, essentially, and it was young teenage boys, and it was something that Russell was really concerned about. It sounds like it's not related at all, except that he thought, what if you cut to the present day, and what if Jill and Roscoe are campaigning not campaigning, but actually going out there and trying to stop the people who are doing this. So it's about looking after the boys, really, because originally it was called The Boys, and so he just wanted to pick up on that idea that one problem might have gone away, but there are still so many vulnerable people out there who need looking after, or who need some kind of attention shining on them. It was, he never wrote any of it. It was a small idea. Don't know if he'll be cross that I've told people what the idea is. Don't tell anyone, press. But it was just, he just wanted to pick it up in the present day and say, look, there are still so many people out there who need some kind of protection. That was the point of it.
I guess he's quite busy at the moment as well, isn't he?
A little bit.